Instead of the bar, you go to Flavortown. You have a great time. You get some donkey sauce. You have a great time with Guy.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
I'm doing everything I can. Now stop calling me Shirley.
The center has to be at least 3 times bigger than this.
All right, it's another edition of Sincerely Unqualified. I'm Kevin. As always, we have Winnie. If you're new with us, please like, rate, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Tell your friends. We really want to start growing. So if you could help us out, we would appreciate it. If you're not new with us and you already did that, welcome back. You know the drill. Today, we got Bridesmaids, which I think is a super fun watch. Great movie. Very fun, enjoyable watch. What do you think, Winnie?
Insane cast. Great movie. Great concept. I mean, you can't really get better than this. I think it's its own niche of movies. I really think it kind of creates and dominates its own category. There's really no way to compare another movie to it because it stands alone in so many people's minds. It's just, I mean, checks so many boxes, and we'll go through everything. But for me, it's just, it's in another tier. It's in a tier of its own.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely pretty similar to most Judd movies. So it's another Apatow movie, and we definitely have done our fair share of Apatow movies already. That should give you a pretty good hint of where we're at movie-wise and what we like. But before we break into the episode, Winnie, got anything you want to share with the people? What's been going on? Watch anything good recently?
You know, I tried to start The Undoing, and I got through one episode, and I was just kind of finding myself tempted to look up where it went on Google because I've heard so many people talking about it so much. And I don't know if I have, and I've never said this in a legitimate sentence before, so it's about to come out. I don't know if I have the bandwidth to go through an entire series like that. And I don't know if I have the emotional capacity right now to go through and go in these ups and downs of a limited series and come out on the other side. I'm more inclined to now just look it up, see what happens, and go, oh, cool, and move on.
Are you just busy? Is what's the bandwidth being taken up? Is it other shows or is it?
It's other shows combined with just, you know, wanting to get in on those conversations, but at the same time, not really caring enough to get in on those conversations a bit. So it's like, you know, when something hits the floor and everybody's talking about it for 3 seconds, which is how stuff works nowadays, and you feel kind of left out if you're not watching it. That's what it seems like now. And I almost like, it's not that I wasn't interested in the show. There's certain shows that click with you that you want to run through. There's certain that don't. Yeah, it's a great show. I'll give it that. The first episode is definitely like, it gets you, but it's not really something that I can see myself going 6 episodes deep into right now. And that's where the Google thing came up. So
that's fair. That's fair. More power to you. Yeah. The weird thing with that is that I actually love Mando, and I know I feel like it's getting a little bit of, it was hit or miss. And I think earlier on in the season, it was just building the story, and now they're just heavy hitters. Like the last few episodes have just been incredible, but I don't see the conversation going on in the internet because I'm not going out to look for it. I would love to talk about it with people, but even in our friend group, I don't think anyone really watches it.
I mean, it's there. It's definitely there. It's in its own.
Yeah, you gotta look
watch
for it
too. That's something that I've been watching too. I definitely am up to date on that. But I can see the lack of conversation in certain areas. It's also, you got to think about this. There's so much content out right now that, like, it's wild to think that 20 years ago there was appointment television, and if you missed a certain show, it's vanished. It's gone. I mean, for us nowadays, I feel like starting with our generation going forward, that's not a thing. I mean, the last time I remember doing that was American Idol. I mean, do you remember American Idol when that was kind of the thing to watch? And then David Archuleta, I think he came in second or one. And that's the last time I remember watching TV, like kind of sitting around with the whole family and seeing and it being interactive. Now we're just overloaded. if you say you're watching something, it becomes its own conversation. There's no conversation about content anymore. It's a conversation about what other people are watching and people saying, no, I haven't seen it. And then you talk about what you're watching and they haven't seen it. And it's wild.
Yeah. I also like that's how something we fabricated during all of quarantine was like when you had an office conversation. So, what are you watching on Netflix? Like that was never a topic before. For some reason, we decided that we were going to pretend like we didn't all just house TV before, which granted for a lot of people, it increased a lot, but come on. Like, what do we do?
I'd say not everyone is like us where they kind of just plow through stuff. I feel like it might be a different level.
I would say that the average person probably binges shows and has binged multiple shows in the past. And now that was the only thing to do, it was more like them saying that it was a thing strictly because of quarantine. And it's not. It's because Netflix and all these streaming services have a hold on us. And it's to the point where I love Christmas. I am a big Christmas guy. But even watching Christmas movies right now, I love this podcast. I love watching comedy movies. But when I was like, gotta watch Bridesmaids, it seemed like what you were saying, the bandwidth. It's like there's I'm battling between those two right now. And that's why I'm going to say it right now. We should do Bad Santa next week because can mix them both together. A nice comedy. It's not a Christmas comedy. That's like a comedy Christmas.
Yeah. Like it's, it's in there. Comedy Christmas.
It's a comedy Christmas. Yeah.
It's a comedy Christmas.
Yeah.
But I mean, the one thing that I'm going to say about this specific movie is that as much as we were talking about streaming services, it's not on one. I mean, you had to rent it. And that's the unfortunate thing about it. $3.99, but
we'll get into it too now. So it is not on streaming service. You do have to rent it, but it is so worth the $4. It's such an enjoyable watch, but as enjoyable as it is, I think a conversation to be had is if it's a rom-com. So we just mentioned Bad Santa, which I said is a comedy Christmas. So I think a lot of the time rom-coms getting put up against each other aren't fair because some are so heavy on comedy and light on romance that some are the complete opposite. Some are corny and it's fun that it's corny. You don't think that this is much of a rom-com, but I think I do.
Okay, so here's where I stand on that, right? It's a rom-com in the sense that there's a relationship involved to some degree. I mean, there's
small
her
part.
and the cop. Exactly. It plays a minuscule role, and I feel like that's just a plot driver as much as it was a great part of it. I think it's more of a, like, The Hangover was a pure, I'd say, comedy movie, right? You would just call it, like, what would you consider it? A pure comedy?
I would say pure comedy. I wouldn't say it's a rom-com because the only relationship you have there is the one that ends in marriage. And it's not like about their relationship to get to marriage. I think it's just a comedy.
That's true. I think that the relationship in this for Kristen Wiig was not to the point where it deserves for the movie to be designated as a rom-com. I think that comedy movies are allowed to have relationships and not carry the designation of it's a rom-com now. Because I feel like calling it a rom-com almost not does it a disservice because there's some great rom-coms, but it almost puts it in a category where I don't think it is because it's so much funnier than what you think kind of when you hear rom-com and goes in so many different directions.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. I think there's no doubt. I mean, we know that the movie isn't about their relationship. I think for me, so I was 14 when this came out, I think. And it was the first time I watched a movie and I was able to like admit to myself, dang, I really like that relationship in this movie. So we have Chris O'Dowd's character who is a cop who's Irish and he's just an adorable man, just a very, very likable person, someone you want to root for. It's definitely an auxiliary part of the movie. Like it's kind of a side story, but I like that side story so much that when I went back to watch this, I found myself placing more value on those parts, more value on what they were up to, as opposed to what just Kristen Wiig was doing. Because this movie is about Kristen Wiig, I guess, finding herself, finding her way back from her bakery closing down. She's in a rut. It definitely is about her. It's not about the relationship, which I will agree with you there, that it's definitely, that makes it not a rom-com, but I like to think of it as one.
I mean, you can definitely, okay. And then when you're on his side almost immediately, right? On the cop side.
Oh yeah.
The scene that put me over the edge where I was like, how can you not want to be with this dude, is when they sleep together, wakes up, and he's got all the baking supplies.
Oh,
he's
what
like,
a sweetheart.
I mean, come on. That was a great move.
What a good move. What a good guy.
I know.
Perfect for her. I mean, come on.
Look, that one line where he's just like, I'm not going to be doing the baking. I'll be doing the eating. And then you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, I got you there.
Damn right, you up big. Yeah, you're going to eat it. You're going to like it.
We know you're going to be eating. Like, yeah. I think that was an incredible part of the movie. I think that it does stand up with every other part, but the best parts were definitely the female relationships. I mean, whether it was Kristen Wiig versus Rose Byrne, which was awesome.
Yep.
And then, I mean, their whole relationship too, just the level of pettiness that you can get to.
Oh, she's so not likable in this movie.
And it gets worse and worse throughout.
Yes.
Even when like you find out she has stepkids and they hate her, it doesn't do anything for her. You still just go, oh, sorry that you kind of deserve it though. You're the worst.
There's like one glimmer of, oh, okay, I get it. Now she's kind of like you think of her as like a trophy stepmom, whatever, and just stepkids hate her. Feel bad for her for a half second, and then you're like, oh, wait, no, you're just the worst. So that's fine.
And I love that they did that too when she's crying in the car and Kristen Wiig's like, oh, you look ugly. And she goes, I don't really look ugly though. I don't. Yeah,
that was funny.
It's like, that's really funny. Just still manages to be the worst. And I feel like there's genuine people who act like that. And I'm happy to have not interacted with them or knowingly interacted with them. But I think that they're just the complete opposites. And just, I mean, there's one thing that we can't not talk about is them going back and forth at the initial bridal
the engagement party,
the speeches, just going off of one another, trying to one up one another. Just speaking Thai and then speaking Spanish. Belief. Oh my gosh. Okay, so if somebody did that at your wedding or at your like engagement party or whatever the hell, what would you think? Because those people are standing there, and I mean, maybe it was on purpose, but they're standing there slightly smiling. I don't know. I mean, some of the stories they're like laughing at. I feel like I was there. I'd just be like, all right, get me out of here now.
No, you know what I would do if it was mine, if it was an engagement party, even if it was my fiance's friends going at it and it was awkward for everyone, I feel like I would have to step in. I'd be like, no, we're not doing this. Let's call it off.
You just grab the mic. You're like, please, that's enough. Just shut off the mics. You're like, all right, dessert's in the other room. Everyone just go now.
Hey, everyone, we see what's happening here. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse.
I know. That was, I think, such a great part of the movie is just them constantly trying to one up each other. And it's just such a different, like, one of them has so much money and one of them doesn't. And just those little things of like, the genuineness versus just the throwing money at something to make it awesome.
Yeah. That's they explored a lot of very common relationships there. So poor versus rich, didn't have sex before or just only had sex with one person versus someone that's like, hey, you need to start doing more of this. You had a lot of that, but there's no doubt this cast is incredible. Like this,
insane.
It's insane how good every single actress in this movie is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I've been a huge Maya Rudolph fan for so long, and she isn't even, I wouldn't say, top 3 in this movie. Like, she's unbelievable, and I wouldn't top top 3 because you have 4 other women who are just above and beyond.
Yeah, if we broke it down by words, you would expect Maya Rudolph's part to be a lot bigger than it is in this movie. I feel she's not even in it that much, but something I do think this movie does very well is places value on the parts that are needed. So we were talking about the relationship with the cop. Those are so great because they develop that story without that much time to do it. So you really care about the guy. You want him to win, but he's not even necessarily in the movie that much. He's not an important part to the movie. Well, that's up for grabs. But same thing with Maya Rudolph. Like they're best friends since birth. We don't see that much of it, but you feel it. Like this movie does a great job about just getting it where it needs to be without spending that much time on it. Although I was kind of surprised that this runtime was like 2 hours, 10 minutes. Still not a long movie, but I always expected to be somewhere around an hour and a half.
I would consider it for a comedy movie. I mean, I think it's on the longer side, I think.
Yeah. It didn't feel like it though.
No, not at all. I mean, it just gets it's such a quick hitter too, where there's the different scenes can live on their own, where it's like there's so many jokes thrown into these little scenes. Each one of them is just so great. And then it also just establishes like, okay, we're an hour in and we know how deeply they are best friends. Like we understand how long they've been best friends, how much I mean, the fact that even Kristen Wiig's mom is like invited to the wedding, invited to all this stuff. You just kind of gather these subtle little things where you're like, all right, we understand there's a relationship you're related to in your own life. You kind of know where it's coming from. You can see yourself in their shoes a little bit, see where they're coming from. It does that really well.
Kristen Wiig's mom, who is
so
an
good
avid AA member who's not an alcoholic. A really funny throw in right there for no reason. It's mentioned like 4 times throughout the movie.
I feel like she's half the movie's sponsor too. She's just everybody's sponsor.
Yeah.
She's never drank alcohol.
She's never drank alcohol and she's someone's sponsor. That's ridiculous, but I love
just
it.
Just because I've never had a sip. That's so good. I mean, there's that, and like even developing the side characters. So we have like a very, very large cast in this movie, right?
Ton of cameos. Yeah.
Ton of cameos and ton of like, okay, Rebel Wilson got paid, I think it was somewhere around $3,000 for this. And it was her first role. Like for Rebel Wilson to start in this movie, to absolutely murder the role like this, I mean, and then this is her springboard to wherever she got from here. But just to have somebody start out there who's now an incredible star.
Yeah. And is like, she's great. She's absolutely great. Also, the Mexican drinking worm tattoo that she gets is absolutely gross to look at. I forgot about that. She kept going in around and it was like festering, and I was like, ugh. But you need to that whole dynamic is hilarious.
What'd she say? You need to pour vegetables on it or like frozen veggies on it. They were like, you need to put frozen veggies on it. And then she opens the bag and just pours it on her back.
Yeah. The brother who I'll mention soon. He says Kristen Wiig is trying to tell him that it's like festering and it's gross. He's like, yeah, it might need some ice. And then she's just shows her back there. She's pouring peas on it. Just hopelessly dumb. Just the funny. That's the other thing that I really like about this movie is that there's silly stuff like that throughout it. So even in the beginning when it's just some silly humor when Maya Rudolph and Kristen Wiig are at that cafe and Kristen Wiig puts like chocolate icing on her tooth or something to pretend like it's missing. And it's just funny, silly humor. Yeah. And I think that sets up the movie well with like, hey, we're going to have a good time here. Okay.
Yeah. Like, you know what you're getting into. This is just have fun, sit back, relax. I mean, that especially comes out when Melissa McCarthy first comes into the movie. You know right away what you're getting into.
Yeah.
She comes in hot. And they do that really well where it's a seamless introduction of everybody because it's at a party where
Right.
Kristen Wiig has never met any of them before. So it's like, oh, there's this person. And then you get the gist of who that person's going to be.
Such a good plot device. And
I know.
I'm trying to think, rack my brain right now. I can't really think of any movies that do that, but it seems like something that would be overdone. It seems like something that people would use all the time, but it's not done in a corny way.
I'll give you an example of something that I think is slightly similar, but also not kind of the opposite of it, is the Ocean's movies, where it's the exact opposite, where they're they're like nonchalant, they're just showing you the character and what they're good for right in front of your eyes. There's no nuance about it. They're just like, this guy picks locks. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like you need like a spy movie or something, a spy or a heist movie for that to work. Yeah, I feel like every single spy or heist movie has that intro, but it's easy, successful.
Just the montage of finding all of the characters. Like, he's a gymnast. What's he going to do? Oh, gymnastics, but he's going to jump from here to here and steal the money. Okay, great. Next character. Like,
parkour.
Okay. Parkour. But that was so great in introducing all of these characters because all of them are so great on their own.
Yeah, each character could probably have its own movie. That's
absolutely.
There's no doubt about that.
Oh yeah, I mean, the one that comes to mind, I've never watched the show, but for some reason, Ellie
Kemper.
I think that her character is slightly similar. I don't want to go off script here and say anything that's not true, so please don't come at me because I
watched the show.
I know what
it's a fantastic show.
What, the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt?
Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, yeah.
Yeah. So is it similar? Am I thinking correctly in thinking that these characters are similar?
Yes, in that Ellie Kemper seems to, in the roles that I've seen her in, plays a similar character in, kind of everything. She's just a very likable, nice, kind of naive, but that's different because Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is all about that they're supposed to be locked in this cellar for years. So you expect her to be very naive, but she's, for lack of a better term, woke. Like she is well adjusted somehow, even though growing up there. So, but yeah, still you have a young naiveness to it. And it makes for a very fun character. I think that she probably, it's pretty similar, I would say, but she plays it so well. And then
she's hilarious. Obviously Rita is the mother of three boys, is the exact opposite of Ellie Kemper's character. Just comes in hot. Just needs a vacation. She's like, I need Vegas. I need to get out of here, please. Like, we're going.
I want balls in my face.
So good. Throughout, she's just the opposite of that, which was so needed to kind of balance the group out in general.
Yeah.
And then you have Melissa McCarthy, who's just the absolute wild card.
Yeah.
Always Sunny said it best, how you kind of put a group together. You always need the wild card, and that's Melissa McCarthy in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, they have all the polar opposite. Well, they have the four polar opposites, and then I think Maya Rudolph. I think the other thing about Maya Rudolph's character that we say, like, she's not really that necessary, but she's that what people call the straight man. So you have four just wacky characters in their own right, and then Maya Rudolph's the only one that's actually level-headed. Like, she definitely plays the role of straight woman really well.
Which is how I think this situation is in real life, because you always, like, if you're the person in the middle and you're bringing all these people together, you have to be that level-headed person because you know all of these people and you know how they act. And if you're not level-headed in the middle, which I know you've experienced recently because it happened, you need to pull all of these different people who have never met each other once together and try to have fun with them and become a group together and do things and try to have fun and keep everyone in check a little bit. Which is,
I had a blast though. I hope so. But the funny thing is that Maya Rudolph's character, she like I said, she's the normal one, but I feel like a lot of the time Maya Rudolph we were talking about Ellie Kemper being similar in most of her roles, which, like, that's very, very common with actors and actresses. But I feel like Maya Rudolph is normally a little over the top or weird or, kind of eccentric. But in this movie, she's not really that at all. And she plays it really well. She's still hilarious. Like, it's Maya Rudolph.
I know, you can't go wrong. I mean, she plays every role really well. I think that this was good in kind of being a different role because I don't necessarily, I appreciate people being typecast. And if you play something really well, then run with it because that's what's going to get you success. And I do think that it kind of swept everybody when she wasn't really a main player in all of the comedy though, because she's such a heavy hitter and to have her in something, something's going to be up.
I think that's basically, it sounds like we're kind of not discrediting her, but we're downplaying her. She played a huge part in this movie and she's completely integral to it. Like,
absolutely.
This movie is not this movie without Maya Rudolph playing her character. But I just think that that's because it's Kristen Wiig's. It's focus on Kristen Wiig. This is about Kristen Wiig. And it's more interesting to explore the relationships of these wacky people she just met that are in this same group, anchored by Maya Rudolph. That is her childhood best friend that's going through this whole marriage process.
This is no way Maya Rudolph slander. We are huge Maya Rudolph fans.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Big on Maya Rudolph.
But you mentioned the type, we'll call it typecasting. Whatever you want to call it. Actors and actresses play similar roles, just said that. But when you have someone like Ellie Kemper that plays it so well, there's a very specific type of character that's in all these movies. And the reason that we look at Ellie Kemper, we're like, she's hilarious, she's fantastic, is because there's basically a market for it, and it's her. There are certain ones that there's no reason to really branch out unless you want to. And I'm sure that she did. I'm sure that she got in a lot of other movies to play different parts to kind of challenge herself. But if she didn't want to, more power to her, because she's probably having a great time getting a lot of roles and acting super well, being super funny. So, no need.
Look, she's had so many credits under her belt. She's in The Office. She's got her own show. She's in Bridesmaids. If you do something well, do it. Like, you're killing it. You're absolutely killing it.
I would almost say, like, don't be an asshole. Like, if you're going to get typecasted as something, be typecasted as Ellie Kemper. She's a great person.
Okay. Absolutely. You want to know something cool about Ellie Kemper?
Yeah.
We can kind of move into some inexclusive exclusives here a little bit.
Okay.
Something we didn't know about Ellie Kemper, or me specifically, I didn't know about Ellie Kemper before, is that she was a student at the John Burroughs School in Landau, Missouri.
A lot of people didn't know that about Ellie Kemper.
But no. Here's the interesting part, is that her teacher was John Hamm. John Hamm was her teacher. That's crazy. That's the crazy part, is that John Hamm was a high school drama teacher before he went to Hollywood. And then Ellie Kemper was his student who's also in this movie. I mean, that's kind of cool, kind of crazy.
Something crazy about that as well that I didn't realize until we looked up facts for this movie is that in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, the reason that they're held under this bunker is because they got this basically cult leader to keep them down there. The cult leader is John Hamm. So this
makes sense.
Teacher and student have been in have been in projects together in just incredible ways.
That's probably the coolest relationship to have. Like, one of your teachers is John Hamm, and then you come out and you have such an incredible career where you work together.
Yes, you get to work with John Hamm.
Yeah, on insane projects. Look, and for her, I'll give her credit. From her perspective, it's not working with John Hamm, because that was Professor Hamm, or like Mr. Hamm.
Yeah.
Before he was John Hamm, he was just Mr. Hamm, who was teaching a high school drama class.
Mr. Hamm is not a good name.
Mr. Hamm. He was a drama teacher.
So that's the thing. I feel like maybe a lot of the time drama teachers get some slack. That's probably kind of common amongst high schools. especially if you throw the name Mr. Ham in there. Let's look at two things. Drama teacher, Mr. Ham. But third thing, dude's super hot. He's not getting made fun of. Unless it's jealous guys that I bet that people were like, no, like he's so stupid. Like teach drama somewhere. Like, no, dude, it's John Hamm.
That's okay. So that's crazy to look back and probably having. So obviously Ellie Kemper is one of his star students or his star student. Imagine having the experience of like, yeah, John Hamm was my teacher in drama and Ellie Kemper was in my class. It's like,
it's so much cooler to be there. Well, if you took drama, maybe you want to be in Ellie Kemper's shoes. But if you're okay with being a marketing coordinator at a mid to large level corporation, then you can say that she was in your class taught by John Hamm. That's almost cooler.
I mean, that's a great story. Also, can you imagine John Hamm being a teacher? Like, I didn't know what I thought he had done before this, but I almost thought he was similar to a Jason Bateman who had been in Hollywood for a long time, where he had established himself, where it was almost like he came when he was younger. He's been in Hollywood for a while. That was out of left field to find out he was just a drama teacher before this.
Obviously, you need to know how to act and you need to really like acting to be a drama teacher. But it is kind of interesting knowing that, because you would look at him and not think about that.
Yeah.
Really quick on John Hamm about this movie, though, is that he also is uncredited. And the reason he is because he didn't want the film to be looked at as more serious than it was. So because he generally is only like in dramatic roles, he said, nope, just keep me uncredited. But he's in the movie a lot. Like, he doesn't play a small part.
No, and he plays the perfect asshole. And I know what I just said, and you can listen back to it, but he does. I mean,
he really does. I mean, if you're talking about great assholes, that's one fantastic asshole.
I mean, if we're talking assholes here, top 3, I would say John Hamm in this movie. Definitely.
No, I mean,
doubt.
but
Absolutely.
really, he does play such a good one.
Just his character. I mean, he's got that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Speaking of roles, speaking of roles and characters, I mentioned it before. There are a lot of cameos in this movie. So as I was watching it, I was just scrolling IMDb. I was like looking to and fro, and I found a short list of casting that I think people might find interesting. So this is just interesting. If you listen to the last episode, I mentioned how much I've been watching the Great British Baking Show, and Matt Lucas. I mean, he's an actor, but the few episodes that I saw him on he was on the Great British Baking Show. He plays Rebel Wilson's brother and Kristen Wiig's roommate, and he is absolutely hilarious in both the Great British Baking Show with his little just quirks, and then in this movie, absolutely hilarious. That relationship between those two and Kristen Wiig is unreal.
The brother sister can't get better.
Yeah. Another one is at the engagement party that we talked about, when she's going around meeting people. Twice she got mistaken for having someone beside her be their husband. So the first one is Steve Banas from Freaks and Geeks. And then the next one is Hank, the security guard from The Office.
Yep. Steve Banas just turning around and going, "You want to go for a walk later?"
Yeah.
She's like, no.
It was hilarious that those are just the ways that people knew about this project and were really excited about it, when you have all these weird cameos for like a half second. Like Steve Banas just saying, "Do you want to go for a walk later?" Which is hilarious.
Okay. And Terry Crews, not to mention.
Terry Crews is in it.
Hopping in there for 2 minutes, doing what he loves to do, fitness, yelling at people, being Terry Crews. That was awesome.
Terry Crews, very Terry Crews in this, yeah. Then we have Tim Heidecker from Tim and Eric's World. Not a cameo, obviously. He plays the fiance. he doesn't even speak in the movie at all. It's just kind of Tim from Tim and Eric's world. Then these two are pretty cool. So the nervous woman that sits next to Kristen Wiig is actually her co-writer. Let me get her name quick. Sorry.
Annie Mumolo.
Yeah, Mumolo? Annie Mumolo. Yeah. So yeah, it actually took them kind of a while to write the script because Kristen Wiig was still at SNL. So Annie Mumolo and Kristen Wiig were kind of, it was almost like a weekend spot that they would Kristen Wiig would fly out there, they would work on the script and do some table reads with Judd. But the script was a while in the making. And yeah, she was the nervous woman who was like freaking out alongside her.
That was so good. That was that was like in the last movie in Old School what was it, Old School, when the director walked up and was like, I'm here for the orgy.
Oh yeah, Todd Phillips.
Yeah. That was like one of those where it's just kind of placing yourself in the perfect scenario for just such a great little part.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then one more, sorry for all this casting stuff. I hope it was all interesting, but this is something that I think people know about. It can't go unsaid. Ben Falcone, he is the air marshal in the on the plane, who sits next to Melissa McCarthy, and Melissa McCarthy gives him all this sexual energy. And they actually, in the end credits, they end up doing this weird sex stuff with a sandwich. They are husband and wife in real life, so they had that chemistry there for the weird sex stuff.
Oh yeah, and that was pretty evident. And I feel like every movie either since then, I don't know if there was anything before that, but every movie that Melissa McCarthy and him are in together, she's always flirting with him and trying to make him uncomfortable.
My favorite thing I think about this whole, well, not about this whole movie, but one of my favorite things about this whole movie is when they're having that discussion, I guess you could call it, like Melissa McCarthy's just being super weird. They don't even try to make him not laugh. The whole time he's kind of cracking up, and he's like, why would I stick a gun in my ass? Like, kind of cracking up. Just like,
I feel like
wouldn't find it for weeks until I wanted you to. And he's just like, okay.
I feel like that's got to be a conversation. Like, if those two are at home and they just kind of break into something, I feel like that's kind of what goes on. It's just one of them is going into a bit, and the other one's like, all right, so tell me more.
Yeah.
Like, how would I get that in there? Why would I put a gun in my butt crack? Like, keep going.
Improv practice right there.
Exactly. And then, so what's funny about you mentioning that they were kind of improv is that 6 of the cast members were actually in the comedy troupe in LA, the improv comedy troupe, the Groundlings. So it was Melissa McCarthy, Ben Falcone, I think Kristen Wiig, and then there were 3 others also in the cast that were all within the Groundlings, kind of together in that comedy troupe, which is really cool. And it really shows the chemistry throughout the movie of everybody knowing how to play off of one another, and whether it was improv or whether it's anything, the timing and everything like that was really great from all of them kind of bouncing off one another.
Yeah. And they actually got together 2 weeks before the filming of the movie, literally just to improv with each other, just to get everything warmed up. They were just going off each other, which is why the chemistry is there right off the bat. Such a good idea.
Oh yeah. And so one thing about one of the characters in this, and I think if I'll say it to you, you'll know kind of who I'm talking about, but I want you to guess. So one of the characters tried to base their persona on Guy Fieri. And I know I said it right.
Guy.
I know I said it right.
Oh yeah, no, say it again.
Guy Fieri.
Guy Fieri.
Guy Fieri.
Okay.
It's not Fieri.
Fieri. Kristen Wiig's mom. The AA. The non-alcoholic AA member.
So close. Guy is a noted sponsor of many, but Melissa, he just brings them instead of the bar. You go to Flavortown. You have a great time. You get some donkey sauce. You have a great time with Guy.
It's a good way to. Yeah.
Get off the booze, get on the donkey sauce. It was
Get off the booze, get on the donkey sauce.
Melissa McCarthy based the entire look and characterization of her part on Guy Fieri. So it went so far as she wanted to, but kind of, I think, got denied or stepped it back a little. She wanted to wear the same exact shirt, have the sunglasses backwards on the back of her head, and have a
it would work
like you do. It would work. I mean, it would really work.
So that's the other funny thing. We were talking about typecasting, and you say that, and I got a question, like, is Melissa McCarthy basically just pretending to be Guy Fieri in all of her movies now? Like she kind of plays like a similar role, which is absolutely hilarious. But I think this might have been I think she owes her career to Guy Fieri.
Have you seen
and her
The Heat?
Insane acting ability? And
have you seen The Heat with Sandra Bullock too?
Yes.
The Heat.
Yes, very good.
That movie. So good. I feel like she brings a little bit of that into The Heat as well. Now, let's say that's very
obviously.
Melissa
I'm joking,
McCarthy.
by the way. Let's get that out of the way. I'm joking.
I hope so. Guy Fieri sitting there just like, I didn't know this.
Guy, if you're listening, I'm sorry. It's all Melissa McCarthy.
Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives featuring Melissa McCarthy.
All right. We'll go on to our next one here. So this one we actually mentioned in our top 10 when we were talking about this movie. It's when everyone gets food poisoning. That's a classic scene. It's absolutely disgusting, but it's a lot of fun it's not a lot of fun to watch. Just funny. It's funny. That scene. Funny. Yeah. Well, it wasn't actually in the original script. They ended up adding it. So it was kind of an idea by Apatow and the director, Paul Feig. They kind of encouraged Kristen Wiig and Momolo to put like some crazy physical humor into it, but obviously we're not slipping on banana peels. Like they pitched the idea to them afterwards, and it worked. They pitched the idea of going to that like sketchy, authentic Brazilian place, and then getting diarrhea and all that stuff, which was so funny. They
took the most so they took probably the nicest, I'm trying to find the best word for it, like the sanctuary of wedding events, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Like the
one of the most like pure.
Yeah, exactly. They took one of those events. I'm trying to find the right word. I'm trying to feel it out.
Yeah. I think that's okay. Yeah, it's like a
trying
nice,
to ASMR, trying to throw in some vocab for everybody. But
sorry, everyone.
Sorry if you have headphones. The new AirPod over ears that are just Beats that they're charging $600 for. Sorry if you have those. The sound quality is supposed to be absurd. But basically, they took that sacred event. They took it and turned it into a mess. And it's supposed to be like trying on wedding dresses. It's this pristine event. It's, you have champagne. Oh, don't get anything on the dress because it's $9,000. First of all, dresses should not be $9,000. Don't know who designed it.
Sure shouldn't be.
No, they definitely should not be. Okay? That's insane.
Get that out of the way.
You ever heard of TJ Maxx?
Something that it made me think of it right now when you're talking about kind of spoiling this pure nice event. In How I Met Your Mother, Allison Hannigan sat on a chocolate cake to ruin one of the dresses she had to pay for. And it's like, oh no, Maya Rudolph shit in the street.
The best was the slow transition to when she's like shitting in the street, where it's just kind of the one step. It's almost like when people go like, behind the couch and they do the I'm going down the stairs. She did that slow, like going down, and then just sat like she was a mother hen over her eggs in the street. Like, oh, it's happening.
It's happening.
Just shitting in the middle of the street, waving the cars by. Like, all right. And this is why we are big on Maya Rudolph, because it's things not to say that her shitting herself is her shining moment, because absolutely it is not. but it's for
Might be up
things.
there.
It's for her delivery and just the overall everything like that of making something out of shitting in the street.
Yeah. That's always the goal.
Oh yeah. You got to make something out of nothing, which is some shit. I mean, we can talk about it more and more, but them even going in the bathroom and the woman who works there yelling, don't use the bathroom. There's one across the street. Them all yelling, running into the bathroom. I do think that. Do you think it was the exterior influence? Do you think it did justice to the movie? Because I know this is one of the scenes that really stands out.
What do you mean?
Like, obviously, this was kind of an input after the thought, after the fact.
Yeah.
But like, I think those are where the best scenes are made. But I heard an interview, or I think it was an interview or something with Kristen Wiig. I'm not 100% on it, but she felt that it was maybe a little over the top, this kind of scene. And yeah. I do understand where she's coming from. You know, I mean, see that perspective because it's the most over the top thing I've ever seen in my life. But
I don't think it's the most over the top thing you've ever seen in your life. Remember what we talked about? Episode 1, the first thing we talked about on the podcast on our lost tapes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a classic internet video. So I know what you're saying. In terms of movies, it is a little out there. It's a little over the top. And generally, I think a lot of the time when you have something like that in there, the humor is the shock factor. And no doubt there's shock factor about this. I personally don't think it takes away from the movie, though. I think it's very easy for having something in there like that. It might take away from it. Something like that might happen. I do think it shakes you up a little bit. It definitely is like, oh, geez. But no, I think for the true comedy fans, like it's tough. It's just tough watching, but you know, it's a lot of fun.
You get through it.
It's a lot of fun watching it.
Everyone's in it together.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So going about that whole relationship talk that we were having before, what kind of relationships were which ones? Is this a rom-com? All of that. The reason I think I want it so badly for it to be a rom-com is because Chris O'Dowd's, let's just say it's probably his accent. Like such a fantastic accent, makes him so much more likable. So he actually wasn't supposed to have an accent. He was supposed to be American, which I think makes like a lot more sense. He is a cop in Milwaukee. He's not going to be Irish on average, let's say.
Yeah.
But that's actually something I was thinking of. I was like, how many cops do you think have accents? That
was the first thing I wrote down.
Yeah.
First thing I wrote down was, are you allowed? Like, not even out of ignorance. It was more of like, if you weren't born here, are you allowed to be a cop?
Yeah.
Like,
and so that's what I was thinking. Yeah. I was like, obviously they could become citizens, but you would assume that for someone to want to be a cop in this country, they probably would have had to be living here a while. So they would lose their accent for the most part. But what happened was everyone loved his Irish accent so much that they decided to keep it. And then they kind of poke fun at it throughout the story or throughout the movie. So Wig actually asks him that straight up about being a citizen. And he makes like a funny joke about it. And then when John Hamm picks up Kristen Wiig when her car breaks down, he tells him he talks funny. So they're like two separate things that kind of call that out. Like he's a cop, but he has an Irish accent.
Yeah, that was so good.
Yeah, I love it though. He's such a lovable guy. So
he is. I mean, you can't really hate on that.
No,
he's a great guy. And I feel like the Irish accent really is. I mean, it made the character.
Ooh, yeah. Some Irish accents are really nice. His is one. We'll say that. That's all I'm saying. Let's move on. Let's move on to our favorites here. Yes, I am. My last name pronounced correctly is Gallagher. So
it
throw that out
like
there.
It sounds like you're making that up.
I didn't know that until I went to Ireland and someone told me that.
It sounds like you're making it up. It sounds like you talked to one homeless man and he goes, "Got her," and you're like, "All right, that's it."
All right,
I'm saying that.
Now let's move on to our favorites here. Well, what do you got for your favorite character? Let's go character for character.
Okay, so my favorite character is Rita, who's Wendy McLendon Covey. She is the one with three boys. Needs some balls in her face. I
snapped a blanket in half.
Literally the ruthlessness that comes out of her because she's got so much pent up anger, whether it was anger or whether it's just stress from living with four men, her husband, and then three little boys who, I mean, she goes from saying she snapped a blanket in half, they're animals. I mean, everything like that, just that exterior. And then finding out she's like, had all these experiences in the past and everything. I just think she's such a well-rounded and hilarious character that anything she comes in saying is so worth listening to and noting. I just was dying at anything she said, honestly.
Yeah, there's a certain energy that women who have multiple sons or only sons for that matter have. Yeah. And she captures that well.
Absolutely.
Mine, we've talked about her enough to the point where I'm really not going to say much else about her. It's Melissa McCarthy. She has every single time her mouth opens in this movie, I crack up. Every single line is hilarious. So let's roll right on to our favorite scenes. I'll go first. My favorite scene is actually when Kristen Wiig's basically at her lowest. She's just laying on the couch. Melissa McCarthy shows up and starts being like, "Oh, you want to have a pity party?" She like climbs on top of her and starts making her slap herself, all this stuff. She's just dropping line after line. That's hilarious. One, she shows up with her 9 dogs. And Kristen Wiig's like, "How many did you get?" She's like, I got 9. She says that 6 would have been better for her to start out. Like just some ridiculous stuff. We figure out that she has the highest security clearance and she knows all the nukes, where all the nukes are and all the codes. It's one of the better scenes in that movie for sure. Honestly, might be my favorite for her lines alone.
I agree with that. I think that scene is hilarious. Mine, I'm going to go with the plane. Okay. And I feel like that's a lot to say because there's a lot of things that go down in the plane scene.
Yeah, but it's one cohesive scene. You're not cheating.
It really is. I mean, whether it's Kristen Wiig coming at Stove, who's really Steve, who's the flight attendant. Are you an appliance? Oh,
fantastic. And then he is fantastic at playing an annoyed flight attendant. He deals with it super well.
Talk about typecast. That guy should be on real flights.
Book him in every single flight.
Absolutely. I mean, he should just be a stand-in no matter what. If you're on a flight, he should be there. But also, like Kristen Wiig sitting next to the guy randomly going, "Help me, I'm poor." Like and then getting the 2 Xanax, having Rose Byrne bring her back a full double of whiskey. And I'm assuming they were Xanax. We don't know what they were for sure, but
it's good that they didn't call it out. Well, one, I'm sure there's some legality thing to that, but 2, showing them taking Xanax and then drinking on it. It's like, well, at least it showed that it didn't turn out well for her.
Yeah. I mean, whatever it was, the whiskey definitely didn't help. And that made the scene when she walks through the curtains and I'm ready to party. It's like, I think the whole thing was just so well done. The fact that they weaved in Melissa McCarthy flirting with her husband in real life, who was the air marshal, going like, "I saw you didn't put anything in the overhead bin. I know you're an air marshal, protect and serve." And he's like, "I'm not an air marshal. I don't know what you're talking about."
Those two, that dynamic is so funny. It does not get much funnier than that.
I know. I mean, that's why I think that if we're talking perfect scenes, and I know that that's an incredible thing to say, could be because nothing's perfect. Right. If we're talking perfect scenes, this is in the conversation. It's absolutely.
I would agree. Yeah, no, I don't think that's crazy to say. But in terms of lines, this movie is so full of them. We've said that already. Some are just like line after line after line. And from my favorite character not in my favorite scene, it's the engagement party scene that we keep talking about. When she first meets Melissa McCarthy, it sets her up like, you know exactly what kind of person she is. It's this hilarious, very odd person, but Maya Rudolph is with her. And then it's that thing that everyone knows when your friend is there with you and they introduce you to someone, and especially like it's Maya Rudolph's fiance's sister. So it's this kind of weird relationship, even for Maya Rudolph. And then Maya Rudolph has to go somewhere and they're just like awkwardly like, so how are you doing? And then Kristen Wiig says, how are you doing? Or how's it going? And then Melissa McCarthy does, it's going great. It's going great. Got some pins in my legs. And then she just starts going off about this whole crazy injury that she just had. But that made me crack up so much. That's a line I forgot about. Is just got some pins in my legs. And I started dying of laughter. She tells her like way too much information about her injury. Couldn't get enough.
Just fell off a cruise ship, tumbled down.
Yeah.
That whole scene just gets me every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mine is from my favorite character, Rita. And it's a long one, but it's so worth it. The payoff is so worth it. Where she's like talking to Ellie Kemper on the plane. And it's like, oh, you're so lucky you're a mother, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, how is it having boy, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, the other night I was slaving away making a beautiful dinner for my family. My youngest boy comes in and says he wants to order pizza. I said, no, we're not ordering pizza tonight. He goes, Mom, why don't you go and fuck yourself? He's 9. The best is he's 9.
He's 9. That's like you would just assume that he's older or something. Tells her to fuck herself, and then he's 9.
He's 9.
Yeah.
Just that little toss away. Like you needed that little context. It's so good.
Yeah. That is hilarious. My next one is actually from her as well. And she's talking about her relationship with her husband. And she's like, sometimes I just want to watch The Daily Show without him entering me. That's so funny. There's not much of a funnier way to talk about sex other than entering me. Like, that's hilarious. But just trying to watch The Daily Show without entering me is all-time line.
So good. Without him entering me.
Yeah.
So for me, my last one, I think we have some honorable mentions coming up. But I have to throw in a line from Rebel Wilson. Because one of them almost had me crying laughing. And it's when Kristen Wiig finds out she's been reading her diary. And Rebel just goes, at first I thought... I didn't know it was your diary. I thought it was a very sad handwritten book. Like, what is going on? You know that these siblings are so weird, but just like, come on.
They are so weird, but I love it. I said before, their whole dynamic is so funny.
And from one of my honorable mentions, I got to toss in.
Yeah.
That in this movie is Matt Bennett, who is in Victorious. He was Robbie in Victorious, the kid who's the ventriloquist.
Yeah.
He had one of the most best like little lines in the movie, which is when they're playing tennis and he's watching with his younger stepsister. And he says, I've seen better tennis playing in a tampon commercial.
Yeah, that one. That's such a well-written line. Like, that's so funny.
Just
no dialogue at all. Like that needed.
No.
That's just a line that you write, and you're like, that's hilarious. That needs to be in.
Somebody from outside of this needs to come in and just hammer that in, and that's it. And that's the whole cutaway.
Yeah, yeah. So many other good lines. You guys all should watch the movie. It's fantastic. Available for rent. Pay the $4. Fun watch. Incredible time. Great movie. Full of lines. But I think that about wraps it up for today. So we'll see you next time. I'm Kevin.
I'm Winnie.
See you at the next episode. What?
What?